All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our March 11th, 2026 Board of Education meeting. If you are able, please join us by standing for a moment of silence. Aiden, would you do us the honor in leading us in the pledge tonight? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. It's lovely to see so many people here tonight. Just a public participation reminder, persons wishing to address the board must sign up prior to the start of public participation. Speakers must register on the form provided by the district at the entrance of the boardroom to maintain a first-come, first-served process. For purposes of following up with the speakers must provide their name, address, telephone number, and/or email address. To limit comments to matters which may be properly discussed during public participation, the speakers will provide the topics. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Reading of the emergency evacuation procedure. In case of emergency, would everyone please follow the exit signs to the outside of the building. Please stay completely clear of the building to provide space for any emergency vehicles. Item number 2, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Elizabeth?
Second.
Brian?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Motion carried. All right, I will turn it over to Dr. Terranova for his update.
Thank you, Mrs. Kostecki. My first piece of update is a brief progress check on our community partner work that is going on in the district. As you know, that we are continuing to deal with a budget gap between our revenue and our expenses that unfortunately is growing worse. But this board has been extremely proactive to get us set up with some community partner work involving community members who can also help us problem solve ways to either add revenue or save on expenses. They started to meet this summer and then formed subcommittees recently this month. And I just wanted to quickly tell you what the subcommittees are. There's a committee that's focused on legacy and major gift fundraising. That's facilitating charitable giving opportunities that include larger donations that could support district expenses in the future. There's another subcommittee called Other Revenue Streams that's going to look at sources such as potentially accessing county sales tax as alternative sources of revenue. We have a group that met tonight for the first time, Educational Program Partnerships, which is going to collaborate with colleges, businesses, BOCES, and other school districts to leverage opportunities for students that are hopefully have the same opportunities or better than they currently do, but leverage them for less expenses and work together and collaborate. This district's already doing that and has been doing that for a while, but we think we can expand those opportunities. A fourth subcommittee is developing a community education program, create a financially self-sustaining community education program that could coordinate after-school student programs, evening adult education classes, and potential summer recreation and camp activities in coordination with the town rec department. This program could also add revenue to the district. And the last subcommittee that's been formed is energy and facilities, exploring energy models that would meet the demands of our school community with potentially significant operational cost savings. So these subcommittees are going to be meeting over the next few months. There's no deadline in terms of having recommendations. That could occur in June. It might occur in the summer. It might occur early in the fall. But ultimately, they're looking at operationalizing these concepts, presenting them to the board, and then having the board obviously make the final decision on whether to go forward with any of these ideas. Anything we can do to limit expenses, but keep and sustain our programming, as well as increase revenue beyond taxes and state aid, would be beneficial to our district. And then my last part of my update is just a few shout outs. First of all, there's a bunch of individual, I'm not going to list their names, but there's a bunch of individual students who have been performing musically across the state because of their excellence in the last few months, as well as we've had student artwork displayed across the Finger Lakes region and in the Rochester area. And a big shout out, I don't want to steal Mr. Siesto's stuff, but I'm just going to say shout out to the musical Mean Girls, which was fantastic, and the amount of work that went into that must have been amazing, because it did not look like a high school musical. It looked like a production of much older actors and actresses. We have an extraordinary district strings concert tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the high school gymnasium. It's also special because we're going to be celebrating 60 years of the Suzuki Strings program, along with showcasing all of our talented orchestra musicians across the district. The commitment and appreciation to the arts is second to none here at Victor. Also, good luck to VIPE, Winter Guard, and our robotics teams as they immerse themselves in competition over the next few weeks. And in April's board meeting, we're going to honor both individual and team athletics sectional winners, as well as our high school musical cast and other award winners from different competitions. It just speaks to the comprehensive nature of our district and how important that is for us to be successful. So that's my superintendent's update. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Terranova. Item 4, we don't have any presentations or recognitions this month, but buckle up for next month because we're obviously going to have quite a few. Item 5, public participation. Although the board's work is open to the public, this is not a meeting with the public. At this time, privilege of the floor is offered to those who signed up to speak. The chair will be happy to recognize those of you who wish to speak. When you approach the microphone, please identify yourself before presenting your thoughts. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and the total time for this portion of the agenda will be limited to 30 minutes. Please note, issues related to specific school district personnel or students must be brought to the attention of the superintendent of schools privately, as they are not discussable at this venue. Thank you. At this time, I will offer the privilege of the floor to John Prater.
Good evening. Members of the board, my name is Jonathan Prater. I am here again tonight to respectfully request that the school district adopts the veterans property tax exemption authorized under New York state law. I want to be clear, I understand this is voluntarily, you guys have the option. You are not required to adopt it, but you are fully empowered to create and adopt your own version of the law, one that reflects the values of this community and the needs of the veterans who live here. You could choose to grant full exemption to all veterans who are rated at 100% disabled. You could also choose a tiered system where every veteran receives relief based on their disability rating, 10, 20, 50, all the way up to 100. The law gives you that flexibility. The question is simply whether the board is willing to act. As of now, veterans do receive a partial exemption on property taxes, but just days ago, Governor Hochul signed legislation making full exemption mandatory for all 100% disabled veterans statewide. With that step taken, it's only a matter of time before the school districts are required to follow suit. So you have the opportunity to lead rather than to wing. Let's be the first school district in Ontario County to step up and do this. Imagine the pride the community would feel, and imagine the message it would send if Victor became the first district to stand behind its veterans in such a meaningful way. Several states across the country have already granted 100% property tax and school tax exemptions to all veterans simply for their service. If they can do it, then so can we. There are approximately 337 veterans living within the Victor School District. If every one of them received a full exemption, the total impact of the school budget would be just over $1.6 million. Spread across roughly 15,000 to 15,900 residents, that comes out to roughly $6 a month. It's a cup of coffee. Yes, assessed values do vary, $1 here, $1 there, but just imagine the community. That's a way to say thank you, the way it truly matters. And now I ask you to look behind me. These are all your veterans that have joined me here tonight. Many are combat veterans who were sent to the worst places on earth. They lived with danger 24 hours a day for months or years at a time. They missed birthdays, holidays, and the births of their children. Some served multiple conflicts. Some came home with visible injuries, and others came home with invisible ones. PTSD, trauma, nightmares that never fully go away. Some were shot, some were totally disabled. All of them served this country. All of them sacrificed, and all of them deserve this relief. And let me make one thing absolutely clear. Veterans are trained to never quit. We don't walk away, and we don't give up. So we will be back every month with more veterans and more voices and more support until this board chooses to do what's right and adopt the 100% tax exemption for veterans of this district. We are not asking for charity. We are asking for recognition, and we are asking for fairness, and we are asking for leadership. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Prater. Next, I'd like to call up James Phelan. Phelan?
That was a mistake. I signed the wrong one.
Okay.
Yeah, next one. Who else? I don't know if she else.
So no Nick either? Okay.
Sorry about
All right, that's all right. Austin Gant?
Same.
Same. Adam, love you guys though. Thanks. It's nice that you're here, and and we're signing up to let everyone know you were here. 2 different sheets, right? William Carr.
I did sign the right one.
All right.
Hey, thank you all for your time. And first, before I'm up here for the veterans exemption, hoping that y'all will consider supporting it. First, though, before I start, hey, thank you very much for everybody in the community who really, helped us out in time of need with Talon Gracioso passing away. I was very humbled and very proud to be part of Victor for that. So thank you very much for that. For veteran support, by the way, for veterans, Chapter 35, your high school students, if you have one, they're eligible for it now. These guys got it approved, so you can get up to 5 months free while they're in high school. It doesn't count towards the 36 months while they're in college. Okay, so the veterans exemption. I think, 2 things are common with just about every disabled veteran that I've met. One, especially if they're 100%, they got a horror story behind that 100%. Second is you see veterans everywhere. You ask them for help, they're there. I run a high school Army junior ROTC program in a high school in Rochester. If we're doing a cleanup, a community cleanup, or any sort of community service, I'll see a 70 or 80-year-old veteran out there right alongside my high school students picking up trash, and I'm all afraid he's going to fall over, but the kids eat it up because the veterans are out there supporting us in everything we do. So I probably have a little bit different message than a lot of them, but I hope that you'll support what they've come here for, because hey, we're a group that hey we still serve in any capacity we have. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Ralph DJ Moore.
So I'll be short. Thank you, first of all, for entertaining all of us here today and letting us to come in and speak about this. So don't let my mediocre good looks fool you. I did 27 years. 12 of those my family spent here. I'm a girl dad. I'm a color guard dad. I'm a marching band dad. And like he had just said, I'm there all the time. I'm sure some of you have seen me hauling props and trailers and everything else. But I'm not here for me. There's about 5 or 6 that I know of personally that couldn't make it tonight that this affects directly, right? And I know with any board, fiscal concerns are a concern. So I just want to give you a few stats. 22 states in the nation have already adopted this. Of those 22 states, if you look at the top 20 schools academically in the nation, 14 of those 20 schools are from those states. So I understand the fiscal concerns, but they can make it work, so can we. So like John had said before me, let's lead the way, show the rest of New York how it's done, and especially in Ontario County. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. And thanks to all of you for coming tonight, supporting each other and being here, and for those who spoke, and for your service. I have asked Dr. Terranova to please reach out to, we'll start with Mr. Prater, and he can maybe decide who else to join him for a meeting with Dr. Terranova and Christine Griffin, our Assistant Superintendent of Business. And that way you guys can sit down and talk about your concerns, look at the data, and really be able to help inform us to be able to make this decision. And we think that meeting would be very beneficial for all of us. So you can expect that reach out very soon. And thank you again. I got him off again, see? Item number 6, acceptance of consent items A through, it's always more than I think it is, isn't it? I. Any questions or comments before we take a motion?
I did have a comment, sorry. Where was I? Oh, obviously, we don't have any retirements, I believe, on this particular personnel agenda, but I do want to recognize Steve Zlavny, who is moving on from the Director of Security position at the end of this school year. Steve has been a great asset to the district, great asset originally to the high school, but now the entire district. People know him because he cares about every single kid. He's done a ton of work on the safety and security of our campus, and he also, before this, had 23 years experience as a state trooper, 13 years experience in the district before the 4 years as Director of Safety and Security. So I just want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for all the dedication and work he's done for our district, and wish him well as he moves forward. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, then can I have a motion to approve, upon recommendation of the superintendent, the following consent items A through I?
Elizabeth?
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Nope, motion carried. All right, campus news.
Good evening. I'd like to thank all of our veterans for your service to our country and community. Appreciate it very much, and for you taking the time to come out to the board meeting tonight. My name's Rob DeRose, the principal of the Victor Early Childhood School. This month, our school came together for the chain linking ceremony, which is a special event that celebrates the many acts of kindness that take place throughout our building. We really focus in on those acts of kindness throughout the month of February, and it culminates in an assembly where we sing our original songs written and composed by Naomi Foley as a school community, and then link every class chain together. It's hanging up proudly in our main hallway there, and every chain link represents something thoughtful that one of our students did throughout that month of February, and now it stands as a visual reminder to our students and staff and faculty and families every day they come in about the importance of treating one another how we want to be treated. Looking ahead, teachers will be hosting families next week for spring parent-teacher conferences. Teachers have reached out to families that they'd like to connect with for a spring check-in to discuss student progress, as well as next steps to ensure that the final months of the school year are positive and filled with growth for each child. Second trimester report cards will be available for families next week. Information about accessing those report cards via School Tool and Parent Square was included in our recent March newsletter. Later this month, families will receive a parent input form. This provides opportunities for families to share input regarding their child and the plan and placement thoughts for next school year. We really value each family's perspective and encourage thoughtful feedback throughout the process, and that'll be sent through Parent Square, so we hope our families are on the lookout for that. Later this month, the Eastman School of Music will be coming to the ECS with their Music for All program. Our music teachers, Naomi Foley and Megan Deasy, spent countless hours on the rigorous application process and coordinating 2 assemblies for the Music for All program to come to our school and make a strong connection with our students and young people, as well as the Eastman School through the U of R, to really encourage continued growth within the music and arts programs. I know our school district is known far and wide for their strong music and arts program, and we think this will further strengthen this program here at the Victor School District. Kindergarten registration is well underway. We encourage all families within the VCSD that have a kiddo who's going to be turning 5 on or before December 1st, 2026, to register as soon as possible. Our kindergarten program is truly something special. We've got incredible teachers, wonderful students, and engaging learning experience that balance both play as well as really strong foundational skills in literacy, math, and all content areas. The UPK lottery took place earlier in February. We're happy to say that we had a really strong turnout with the lottery and that we have full programs for all of our in-building and community-based locations, and we're looking forward to another amazing year for UPK. Finally, on April 22nd at 6 p.m., we'll host our Kindergarten Information Night. Just before that, at 5:30, we'll host the Multi-Age Information Night. They'll both be here in our auditorium to make it easier for our incoming kinder families. We hope as many of our incoming families come to learn all about the kindergarten year. It's designed just for parents and caregivers because it provides an overview, more of an informational Q&A session for our families. We hope that they can all come to learn about this exciting transition as it approaches. As always, we thank the board for your continued support, and we look forward to another exciting month here at the ECS.
Hi, I'm Amanda Byrne, principal of Victor Primary School. In March at VPS, we continue to focus on responsive instructional systems, meaningful learning experiences for our students, strong partnerships with families, and preparing thoughtfully for next school year. One important development this month was we implemented our standing Tier 2 and Tier 3 review meetings for both math and ELA, which was a big lift. During these biweekly meetings, interventionists and coaches collaboratively review the progress of students who are already receiving academic intervention services. The structure allows the team to examine student growth and progress monitoring in a timely way, determine whether we're meeting expected rates of progress, and adjust or intensify supports when needed, rather than just 3 times a year. By creating this consistent system for reviewing intervention data, we're strengthening the alignment between our interventionist and the connection to the classroom and getting that more responsive support system. This month, our students have also extended their learning beyond the classroom through some field trip experiences. This week, our K-1 multi-age students visited the planetarium to learn about the Earth, Moon, and Sky. Second graders traveled to the Rochester Museum and Science Center, where they enjoyed self-guided exploration, a fancy lunch in the mezzanine, and a live science presentation. Both groups had the opportunity to connect their classroom learning to engaging experiences and hands-on exhibits. These experiences provide meaningful opportunities for curiosity, discovery, and shared learning. On Friday, our staff will participate in Superintendent's Conference Day. Our school community will spend time learning about our building-specific reunification and evacuation procedures as part of our continued focus on school safety. Classroom teachers will also have dedicated time to analyze Tier 1 assessment data. This might include analyzing their AIMS-WED data to develop student literacy profiles or analyzing eDoctrina data to examine their math assessment data. This work will help our teachers to identify patterns in student learning and inform their win-time instruction. And our interventionists will have a similar opportunity to review their progress monitoring data, reflect on that rate of improvement, and prepare for those collaborative problem-solving conversations. As we begin planning for next school year, we've also launched our scheduling and placement processes. This week, we visited our first grade team and second grade team to review the process and expectations for providing their input about their learners. Teachers play such a vital role in sharing their insight about students as learners and friends, which is integral in us developing those thoughtfully designed classrooms that are balanced, supporting student growth, social development, and those positive peer connections. Family input's another critical component of the process, and in this month's newsletter, our parent input opportunity was shared, and that's due later on May 1st. This month, we're also preparing our third graders for the upcoming New York State computer-based assessments in ELA and math. Earlier this week, we met with our 3rd grade and 2-3 multi-age teachers to review our proctoring procedures and testing logistics. Something new we're doing this year is having our coaches push into classrooms to do some special meet the test style lessons. So Lauren Less, our ELA coach, and Angela Tayo, our librarian, are leading lessons in teachers' classrooms that help students become familiar with the testing platform and tools and better understand those expectations for written responses. Later this spring, Erin Cole, our math coach, will do the same, focused on our upcoming math test. Finally, progress reports will be issued on March 18th, and our spring parent-teacher conferences will take place on March 20th. These events provide important opportunities to communicate with families about our students' progress, celebrate their growth, and discuss the goals for the remainder of the school year, as well as the plan going into the next. There are many moving parts in March, but these efforts reflect our continued commitment to strengthening systems, supporting our students this year and next, and maintaining those strong partnerships with staff and families as we move forward together. I also want to thank our PTSA, who hosted our Lucky to Be Loved dance at the end of February, a combination of Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day theme. There was a great turnout, a live DJ, and a lot of fun. Take care.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Morrow, and I'm the principal of the intermediate school. Our students have been hard at work in their classrooms, and we continue to see them persevering as they tackle new and increasingly challenging concepts. One great example of this can be seen in our 4th grade classrooms, where students are currently reading the novel The Season of Styx Malone. The high-level interest and motivation surrounding this story has been exciting to see. And because students are so engaged with the characters and the plot, they have been pushing themselves through more complex reading tasks and using the story as a foundation for deeper work in both reading and writing. Our students have also had several unique learning opportunities this past month. One of our 6th grade teachers, Topher Pike, was able to purchase a 3D printer through a grant this past year. Mr. Pike then partnered with local businesses to create an authentic learning experience for his students. As part of this project, students designed their own fidgets using the 3D printer and presented their designs to those businesses. This project allowed students to apply creativity, problem solving, and presentation skills while seeing how their ideas can connect to the real world. Additionally, our 4th grade students have been traveling to the Susan B. Anthony House, where they have been learning more about the history of women's rights and the many contributions made by Susan B. Anthony. This experience helps bring history to life and allows students to connect their classroom learning to important historical events. I would also like to share that our science fair last week was a huge success. The creativity, passion, and effort that students put into their project was truly amazing to see. Special recognition to one of the projects that tracked the heart rate during Buffalo Bills games by the students. So I very much appreciated that and appreciated the thought that went into that project. A big thank you goes out to Natalie Sonneville for her hard work in organizing such a great event for our intermediate school community. And we're really proud of the effort of our students and all that they're putting into their learning over this past month, and are really grateful for the many opportunities that allow them to engage deeply in that work. So thank you for your continued support of our students and staff at the intermediate school.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Gee, the principal of the junior high school. We've got a busy few weeks ahead of us, starting with this Friday. As Amanda mentioned, we're excited about a professional day of learning, where our teams are going to be able to kind of collaborate and really look at the goals that they set for themselves this year. And we also have our student council activity night on this Friday. 150 or so tickets have sold, with sales still up again tomorrow. And our PTSA has, again, been heavily involved in helping make that happen for our kids. On Monday, we're going to be administering the Youth Risk Survey, where we're kind of partnering with multiple schools within the region to gather information about how our kids are doing and the types of things that they might be experiencing or exposed to that helps us inform our curriculum and ultimately our support of our students over time. Next Friday, we have our books at breakfast, which I know, Carol, you're very familiar with. You helped run that for years for us. We're going strong, so PTSA will be on campus on Friday, helping us with that. Later on this month, our concert series starts up again, which we're super excited about. March is Music in Schools Month, and we get a chance to celebrate all the great work of our students and the teachers supporting them. And lastly, we're continuing our plans as we transition into the 26-27 school year. Currently, we're working hard to make sure we place students into their elective courses and their choices for language and music options as they come from the 6th to the 7th grade. Next month, we'll really kind of dial in and make sure that student supports are aligned within our AIS services and our direct supports for kids with some learning needs. Look forward to giving you an update next month. Look at this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Siesto, and I am the principal at Victor Senior High School. A few updates to share with you this month from the high school. The first is we want to congratulate the 43 students who were on the DECA State Career Conference last week at the Convention Center downtown. Students had a phenomenal experience, meeting students from across the state and engaging in business competitions and presentations. We have great representation at the International Conference next month in Atlanta. 11 students have qualified to attend. And once again, thanks to our work-based learning coordinator, Mrs. Utz, and business teacher, Mr. Kataya, for their leadership for how they generate such interest in the business program. Also want to give congratulations to some exceptional Victor Senior High School students, starting with senior Gianna Arnitz. She was one of 26 students from each school district in Ontario County who was recognized last Thursday with an award from the Wayne Finger Lakes BOCE Superintendents Group for the outstanding leadership she has demonstrated in her high school years. She is a member of the Spanish Business and National Honor Societies, is a competitive dancer, and a member of Student Council. She volunteers for Winterguard. She's in DECA. She's at the Rock to Change Student Summit, and she is a link crew leader, volunteers at the Bloomfield Food Pantry, volunteers at Special Olympics, you name it, she's doing it. She is a true leader and a role model, and we thank her for her leadership and outstanding commitment to the community. And we also want to congratulate senior violinist Benjamin Song. Ben won the Finger Lakes Symphony Orchestra's Mark Bradley Young Artist Competition on Saturday the 28th, and he is going to perform a solo with the orchestra in their spring concert on May 3rd, which is incredible accomplishment for Ben. And like Dr. Terranova said, we want to make sure we highlight our spring musical that was last weekend, Mean Girls. Thank you, Mrs. Burkmeyer, and the entire crew, the musicians, and the students and adults who were involved in the production. It was absolutely outstanding, like Dr. Terranova said. In my opinion, perhaps the best musical we've ever done, and it just keeps getting better every year. Robotics is going to be at RIT this weekend for a big regional competition. Good luck to them. We have our Rock to Change Student Summit on Race Relations next Thursday at Monroe 2 BOCES. And also next Thursday, 250 students, we're going to go to Boston on our annual senior trip. Going to a Bruins game, that's going to be a new experience for us, so we're looking forward to that. 250 kids on a bus for 8 hours, then go to a hockey game. It's going to be awesome. We did have a couple of trips this past month. Thank you, Mrs. Dole, for organizing the pictures. Our Seas Club went to Gore Mountain last weekend for 2 wonderful days of skiing and snowboarding. The pictures there from DECA downtown from last week. And there was an art trip to England and France over February break led by Mr. Denner and Mr. Redout. And they asked me to make sure to thank Dr. Terranova and the Board of Education for supporting these endeavors and these trips for our students. Now, Aiden's going to give the student perspective for the month.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aiden Kellen. I'm one of the student representatives to the Board of Education. Unfortunately, Bella could not be here tonight due to a prior commitment, so I'll be covering part of her presentation. The class of 2028 and 2029 are preparing for the Spring Fling Dance this Friday. There will be a variety of drinks and snacks available for purchase at the dance. Tickets are sold Tickets are sold in the cafeteria and during lunch or online with School Box. Student council members have spent countless hours working hard to make this dance come to life. This past weekend, 24 Model UN delegates attended the UNAR conference at St. John Fisher. Model UN requires preparation, critical thinking, and problem solving to develop solutions for global issues. At the conference, 3 delegates earned awards: sophomore Rav Gupta, Best New Delegate; senior Olivia Ofori, Outstanding Delegate; and senior John Burdick, Best Delegate. Furthermore, congratulations to all the teams and individual athletes that competed at sectionals these past few weeks. And with spring sports starting earlier this week, I had the opportunity to talk with many student athletes, and they are excited and looking forward to a successful season. Lastly, the athletes would like to thank the Board of Education and Senior High School Administration for the continued support in the athletic program. Thank you.
Thank you all for your campus news updates. So much exciting things going on, and thank you, Aiden, for our student perspective. It's really helpful to hear what you're seeing and hearing around campus. Item 7B, Management Plan Update, 6 to 8 Learning and Instruction Focusing on Science. Karen Finter, Carrie Goodell, Brian Gee.
Good evening, everybody. You might notice that it's only Principal Gee and myself. Unfortunately, Mrs. Goodell was unable to join us tonight, but please know that all of the work that we're presenting would not be possible if it wasn't for her and her tremendous leadership and support of this work moving forward. So it's our pleasure tonight to share with you an update related to our management plan on learning and instruction. It's the final management plan presentation of the year. And tonight we're really going to hone in on the alignment between that 4-year management plan, our model of instruction, and how that work is impacted by and has impacted instructional shifts in science, in particular looking at the grades 6-8 band. So we want to share with you what those instructional shifts are really all about, and to give you a taste of those student-centered learning experiences and the impact that those shifts have had so far. So as you know, the management plan within the 3 pillars, our learning and instruction pillar really has that overarching goal to help the district support comprehensive processes and systems that positively impact students' academic success. A big part of that is the development of an aligned and guaranteed viable curriculum, and this science implementation demonstrates that work beautifully, really thinking about the scope in grades K all the way through 12 as we go through some of the discipline areas, and you'll certainly see that tonight. We certainly also want to reinforce that idea of planning with the end in mind, the importance of backwards planning from those rigorous standards and thinking about those learning experiences that will develop the students as problem solvers, creative thinkers, and how are we using and collecting information along the way about their learning through our assessment practices, and really being mindful of what we're seeing and how we respond. And all of this work certainly wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the support of our instructional coaches, our teacher leaders, and certainly Mrs. Goodell and other leaders in supporting professional learning and creating the conditions for high levels of collaboration. So really, this work is the perfect example of the kinds of things that are happening with that Year 4 management plan. This is a familiar document, our model of instruction, where we really think about that backwards planning, planning with the end in mind, to create that student-centered learning environment. And the arrows that are coming in from the side, I had asked Carrie, make sure that in our presentation we're connecting the model of instruction. She's like, well, it all connects. It's hard not to. And even we could have drawn arrows into the welcoming environment and the kind of learning environment that these shifts in science create, and certainly in the ways that we differentiate our instruction for students. But really highlighting certainly the student-centered learning opportunities, making sure that we're providing collaboration and rich engagement, opportunities for critical thinking, and certainly supporting students as they're developing their literacy practices by looking at not just traditional text, but interpreting diagrams, models, data sets to really have a rich experience in the classroom. So there's so much to be proud of in this work, both in terms of the teacher shifts and development and the quality of the learning experiences that this has created for our students. We'd be remiss if we didn't share with you the timeline of these changes, but I do have to admit this timeline has been going on for a decade. New York State developed the NISLS standards, the New York State Science Learning Standards, back in 2016. And as they adopted them, they had a very slow and methodical rollout outlined so that districts had 3 to 4 years to really unpack those standards, plan from those standards without implementing any changes. Well, certainly COVID hit. It impacted their timeline. It impacted certainly districts' timelines and how that work was rolled out. But we certainly, after COVID, had to regroup and think about what does that look like and what does that mean here, because the one thing that did happen is that New York State released new assessments for grades 5th grade and 8th grade, and these investigations, science laboratory experiences that are statewide, they're standardized in classrooms all over the state, but are embedded within curriculum. They're embedded within learning experiences. So it's not a standalone assessment, but it's rather an opportunity for students to learn along the way. So those were implemented, and certainly last year and moving on into the next few years, we're seeing new science investigations at the high school level and Regents exams released. So when the state initially presented its timeline and then adjusted, we had to do the same. We had to be really mindful of the decision making. If rushed, we could inadvertently create gaps for students in certain grade levels, or we would have to have students pivot between the old way of understanding and experiencing science and the new way. We also had to be mindful of budget implications for new materials or supplies, staff development, scheduling challenges, and how to ensure that a cohort had certainly exposure to all of the content and state-required lab investigations across the grade levels that prepared them for these new assessments. So the work really started at the K-5 level first, creating a cohesive and manageable instructional plan that covered the grade level standards and shifted approach to the new standards. When you see full alignment, those dark black arrows, that's following a cohort of students engaged in our new spiral way of learning. Gone are, for the most part at K-8, discipline silos where one grade level might cover one type of content, whether it's physical science or life science. It's really now integrated, and you'll see that in a minute. It doesn't mean that a grade level, if you see full alignment, even though assessments came out before that, it doesn't mean that students weren't exposed to the new standards, weren't exposed to some of the new content, but it really is just making sure that we're being mindful of our cohort-based experience and being able to provision adequately for them. So when we say full alignment or alignment, what does that really mean? And the shifts are very profound. The focus of the old way of learning science really was content-driven. There was a set of knowledge. That knowledge had to be remembered, memorized, and reproduced on assessments. The new standards require a different way of thinking. Yes, you still have to have a core content understanding, but you have to be able to apply that understanding in new and novel situations. You have to be able to think flexibly, to problem solve, recognize and unpack differing phenomena that you might have experienced in the classroom. The teacher is not the facilitator of all of the knowledge anymore. It's not teacher-centered, top-down lecture. It is really student-focused, student-centered, where the student is the investigator, the scientist, and teachers are facilitating discovery. I often remember lab activities as a former science teacher myself. Those were always confirming, right? Like you taught a certain concept, you did the laboratory exercise to prove it. those kinds of experiments are gone. Students generate questions and then build experiments to test their questions, to gather data, and do that in a controlled setting, but still generating those questions themselves. The grade levels, we highlighted there, from discipline silos, those core contents, 6th grade being physical science, it's no longer that way. It's integrated. Because really, when we think about science, think about any topic, whether it's climate, whether it's environmental, it is really all of those disciplines coming together. And so we wanted kids to have opportunities to think that way throughout their instruction. And then finally, the professional development. Really not just focusing on what we're teaching, but how we're teaching it, and supporting teachers in being comfortable with having students generate questions, having students design experiments, having students think in that messy way to build and demonstrate their understanding. So there's been a tremendous amount of job-embedded professional learning that our teachers have engaged in, and we cannot thank them enough for all of their hard work. In addition to those teams that have come together to take a look at curriculum, to unpack those standards, and to really refine practice. So we want to certainly point out that hard work and thank them. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who's going to share some great examples and some feedback and progress so far.
Hello, everyone. Brian from the junior high school. So we're going to talk a little more deeply about some of the instructional changes that are being representing the important shifts that Karen talked about and how students learn science. So in 6th grade, students are now learning science by taking on the role of a scientist, a chemist, a researcher perhaps, and they're anchoring their learning in a real-world phenomenon, something like maybe trying to figure out why somebody might be experiencing fatigue if they're learning about metabolism. And then from there, this approach that we're kind of piloting and working with, really not piloting, is encouraging kids to ask questions, to analyze evidence, and to be able to explain. At the 6th grade level, we're explaining a scientific process. And I emphasize that because when we get to 7th grade and 8th grade, we go from explaining into higher levels of utilizing those scientific processes. This gives you some kind of an example of the types of things that students are kind of looking at and interacting with in terms of a 6th grade lesson. When we move on to 7th grade, it's the same concept. We're still exploring science through assuming a role. In this case now we've maybe leveled up to things like being a physicist or an astronomer, perhaps a genetic researcher, depending on the unit that we're studying. And again, we're looking at authentic real-world problems that help drive the investigation. So for example, trying to figure out why does a particular town have reddish-brown substance in their tap water? Right? Real-world things you hear about in the news, and again, like Karen highlighted, that brings together multiple facets of science into a singular problem that they can then kind of work through to try to solve. And at this level, we're asking kids to be able to not only sort of gather data, but really begin to analyze that data, conduct their own investigations, and now we're applying scientific reasoning and processes to the evidence that they have. So we've gone from being able to explain it to now try to apply it. And as we move into 8th grade, again, we're still modeling by acting, and now we're maybe a meteorologist, a climatologist, an energy scientist. All right? So again, kind of an integrated approach, but with slightly different sort of phenomenon to follow. In this case, the kids would be investigating why is it that a particular city or area has had more severe storms over time, and what is contributing to that. And again, students are learning by analyzing now systems. They're looking at identifying patterns, which is a higher level sort of thinking process for them. And now they're using data to explain these real world events. So it's name it, understand it a little bit. Now we can use it to explain something that's happening around us. And that 3-year evolution, when we take a look at how that's impacted sort of student results, is pretty impressive. So first off, the changes that we talked about really represent moving from the focus about learning about science to actually doing science, and that's Karen kind of alluded to that earlier. Oh, that's the 8th grade slide, sorry. So this slide, you're going to see some side-by-side comparisons between 2023 data and 2024-25 data. Our 5th grade had a 12% jump in its proficiency, which really puts us around 7th out of the 25 school districts in the Wayne Finger Lakes region. And when we look at the 8th grade data, that's even a more pronounced jump. We're a 17% increase in proficiency, which puts us around 4th out of those same 25 schools. And what these numbers are really telling us is that when students are asked to think like scientists, solve mysteries, like the Galetown example that was earlier, investigating water quality, they aren't just engaged more, they're actually retaining and applying the material at a much higher level. And that's really the benefit to the new approach. And as Karen mentioned, this comes with a great deal of effort. So we certainly have I think I read the early impact part out of order. So sorry about that, I got my sheets out of order. So when we talk about what our teachers are seeing, so the data tells us one thing, but what our teachers are seeing is a direct translation to student engagement and students being able to synthesize information in order to make meaning and then apply that meaning to a new real-world problem with a high emphasis on literacy skills. And that's a shift that's going to benefit students as they encounter the new earth science exam and other exams that they'll take when they enter into the high school. Okay. And what our students are saying is that not only do they feel more engaged, but they recognize that inquiry-based, that's our words, not theirs, but they recognize that inquiry-based approaches really help them learn things at a much deeper level. And so here you got a couple representations of what some of our students actually told us when we asked them what they thought about science instruction, what they thought about their science classes of this year. Don't want to jump too fast, make sure you got a chance to see it. Okay, and lastly, as Karen mentioned, this is a big lift, and it's a multi-year lift. So what is our future focus? So moving forward, we're depending on really deepening the quality of student-centered instruction. We're making sure that we're strengthening our questioning strategies in particular to push student thinking forward. We want to increase the rigor with which students are engaging in student-centered tasks, ensuring that they're getting meaningful, high-level thinking. And we want to make sure that our teams feel supported at the PLC level, the departmental level, in order to kind of continue to move this work forward, really thinking about some of the assessment and feedback practices. And we used science to highlight the direction in which the model of instruction is being applied to all departments. So we wanted to focus on science today, but we could have looked at English, math, social studies in the same lens to see similar types of approaches, and hopefully we're going to see very similar outcomes over time. There we go. So with that, we have an opportunity for questions if you have one for either of us.
I love this presentation, especially having a kiddo who's ready to jump into junior high. I think it's super fascinating just as like a parent as well. But a question that I have, so these shifts from grades 6 through 8, then what are the implications if there's any shifts like at the high school level? So either the honors or not, or Regents track, either way, just looking at the way kids are participating in these classes at this point. This slide, yes. So I see that there's the timeline, I see the alignment, but what does that do at that level? Like just briefly.
Yeah, so.
If there are some big changes or not.
Yeah, and the high school courses have very significant changes, right? We saw that with biology, shifting from living environment of old to now biology. Earth in space is the new earth science, which will be implemented in full next year. We're this year in both Science 8 and Earth Science, so whether a student is accelerated or not, is still getting instruction in those investigations and the kinds of thinking and modeling and practices that can go into those investigations. And teachers are piloting units that represent the three-dimensional planning, the integration of those standards with practices and concepts, but it's not a full year implementation yet. So then next year, both of those subject areas, whether it's grade 8 Earth Science or grade 8 general science, both will be implementing fully next year.
Okay.
So they're married together, if you will.
Perfect. And you just spoke to the follow-up question that I have. I love that all of our students can encounter this type of learning, and it's not just for kids who might qualify for accelerated programming, but I love that piece too. So that's really exciting to hear.
Yeah, it's science for everybody. It is amazing to see the kids.
Thank you.
I know this is predominantly the conversation with junior high, in particular earth science, and the idea that you could do that to accelerate or not. But does it beg the question of sequencing down the line as they make their way into high school if they don't go that route? So for example, I just asked Aiden a minute ago, sequencing for earth science is 10th grade? Is that correct?
Currently, yes.
So you're either 8th or 10th, but is there intentional conversations around what that sequencing look like in general? Does the state have certain mandates on that? I guess I'm just trying to, okay. So is that part of your continual assessment? Okay, yeah. Thanks. Do you want to share a little bit about that, or?
Using the
It wasn't
signals.
always that way.
I see you guys are we like jiving right now?
Yeah, we actually made an adjustment several years ago where it used to be that around 9th grade was an earth science course and 10th grade would have been living environment. And we made the decision to kind of shift that around based on some of the pathway recommendations from the state. So that's one of those things that you can always revisit for sure.
And the only reason I'm asking is because a lot of the science of discovery that you're talking about, the experimentation and whatnot, I'm so far removed from earth science curriculum that I'm trying to process, like for chemistry and bio in particular, I know that there's an intentional laboratory sort of piece. And I know with earth science, there is a laboratory component, but I'm just trying to, in my mind, make that connection intentionally. And I'm starting to see it shape up here now, which is really good. And, yeah.
And I think, just very briefly, but I think what helps prepare kids is in this model of instruction, we're kind of integrating those life sciences, those physical sciences, those earth and space, all into multiple years of exposure, as opposed to in years past, it was like you sort of had it now, and then you may not see it again for 2-3 years, if ever. Whereas now we're kind of taking all of that and embedding it into some skill development, so they're seeing multiple exposures. So wherever they are in that pathway, they should step in. Oh, I've got a little bit of chemistry now. I've got a little bit of the physics. I've got a little bit of the earth science, even if I'm not in the accelerated pathway.
Yeah, and even, I guess, sorry to keep going, but the data collection piece too, has that tangential relationship with the concept of, mathematics and where you're going with that later. So this is fascinating to see that it's not just about sequencing and stepwise approach from one to the next. There's these sort of tangential things that are going on that, I think one of the students said, like, I now understand the little things better, which to me is such a profound thing to hear from a, junior high student. So
7th grader.
Yeah, 7th grader, right, yeah.
And to put in a shameless plug, right, your question about sequencing, the state doesn't mandate a content area per grade level, right? They keep the 9-12 assessments siloed, right? There's biology, there's chemistry, there's physics. But we know 4 years of science sets students up for success. 4 years of science at the secondary level sets students up for success as they're heading into college. And even though the state only mandates currently 3, we know that 4th year is important no matter if they're going into the field of business or in medicine, right? Like it really does make a big difference. And so we would advocate, whether they're accelerated or not, they have these rich experiences across all 4 years.
I just want to say thank you. I know it's been a multi-year project, and when you say a heavy lift, I know that this has been a lot of work coming into, and I don't know if the slides do it justice. I know behind the scenes you did a lot of work.
I can say they don't, and Carrie would attest to that. She
yes.
Put in
teaching
staff. So
yes, pass along the praise to Carrie and the staff, because it is a different teaching style, and it's that whole mindset. And you're so right, Karen, when you say, it's like back in, my day when we were in school, it was like you learned the content and you memorized it and you spit it out on a test and that was it. And you you didn't learn how to apply it. You didn't, unless you went into that field, in college or something. So like, I love that it's, because we're in the information age, the kids can look up some content, but it's good that you're still concentrating on content, but it's using that information and how does it impact, or how do you answer, solve questions, solve problems, and just that being able to apply it is so important. So that is wonderful. And the hands-on aspect, it's like every Super Science Saturday and every, camp convention, it's like kids love the hands-on. And they learn so much from, just trying it out, and that iteration, and that, all of that stuff. So that is wonderful that it's in the classrooms. My only question is if you can explain, and you kind of touched on it, Brian, that it's like a future goal too, is just explain for parents, like how this changes the assessment process too. It's, because, you can't just give a multiple choice test and, that shows you that the student knows those skills.
Yeah, so a lot of the assessment is now going to be sort of project-based and problem solution oriented. So the products that kids are producing are things that they're coming together to create that help kind of display an answer to the problem that they were presented. So there are still going to be elements where kids will take a traditional, say, quiz or type of an assessment like that, but there's going to be a lot more of needing to articulate in words and in writing their thinking, and also then be able to say, here's the solution to this particular problem, or here's how my hypothesis met with the outcomes of actually performing, say, an experiment or running a simulation. So the products are really different that we're asking kids to create and produce, which is then going to drive how teachers assess that. Yeah.
Is it also true, I think at the high school level, there's significant reading comprehension on the new Regents exams?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this approach really embeds a lot of those literacy skills into the everyday instructional practices.
Any other questions? I just realized this is the fourth year that you presented on the management plan, and this is my fourth year on the board. So actually watching this from beginning to end, it's inspiring. It really is. Thank you for the work you've done, and it is great to see how this is all coming together. You don't often get to see the beginning to the end of these things from this seat, so this was exceptional. Item 7C, budget development update on personnel, Christine Griffin and Dave Passero. Oh, and Dr. Terranova. He's going. Whether they want him or not.
Oh, they didn't put me on the list, but I'm just going to start off with a couple slides and then turn it over to the experts. Good, it worked. That's good. You see our agenda for tonight? This is a big one. This is the personnel budget, which is roughly 75% of our total budget for next year. Our goals remain the same as they have really over the last 3 years, which is to offer the best, most comprehensive education we can possibly offer for our kids within the scope of the community's financial ability to pay for it. We do so by continuing to align laser-like on the most essential aspects that we need to spend the money on, try to save money as much as possible, maximize every dollar spent, and most importantly, be transparent as possible. So 3 slides I'm going to do, then turn it over. The first is, what is our financial landscape currently? So you've heard us talk about our struggles with the growing gap between expenditures and revenue. Those continue to grow. You can see our projected gap in 26 and 27 is significantly greater than this past year's gap. That's because our actual expenses are going up close to 7%. While our projected revenue, is going up only 3.38%. So that leaves a shortfall of over $7 million, actually $7,658,869. The main culprits in this are the expenses, especially healthcare, utilities, and in some cases, BOCES expenses. But for example, our healthcare costs are going up close to 15% next year. That makes up 80%, that increases 87% of our total revenue we're getting from state aid and taxes next year. So we're eating up 87% of our revenue increase for next year, just healthcare cost increases alone. That's a challenge to bridge that gap while protecting student programs and existing staff. And that's the good news. So our commitment to 26-27 is we are not going to reduce any student programming. We are not laying off any staff or teachers. We're going to maintain the established class size parameters, and Christine and Dave are going to talk about the specifics in a second around that. And we're going to do whatever we can not to have to spend any of our limited reserves when that happens. That's a result, however, the reason we're able to do this is because of the great work of the leadership of the board and Christine to create a contingency amount at the end of this year of around $7 million that's going to cover the $7 million, or most of the $7,658,000. So because of that contingency at the end of this year, we're able to cover the gap for next year. But that gap and that contingency numbers are starting to become equal, and the next phase of that is the scary one where the gap is bigger than the contingency. So we definitely have some work to do in the future, but I am extremely hopeful of this work. It starts with the advocacy of this Board of Education and collaboration across our entire community, including Mr. Modleski, the president of the VTA, who's been a huge advocate in collaborating with us around state legislation to get more state aid. It's about innovation. We talked about the community partner work. That's just one piece of it. We have to be innovative in trying to find ways to share expenses, save expenses in things like health care, work with the state and really the United States government around health care costs, and do other things to just look outside the box to try to save money as well as gain revenue beyond taxes and state aid. Certainly efficiencies, that's not a bad word. That doesn't mean, I want to be clear, efficiencies doesn't mean we're cutting programs or people. Efficiencies mean we're optimizing our current practice as much as possible to spend the money on the most essential aspects because we have a finite amount of money. Obviously, the goal is going to be to move from short-term fixes to long-term financial health. And again, with the expertise around us, I feel like that is a definite win-win and that we can accomplish that. So that's the big picture. We'll definitely talk more about the big picture as we move through the next few months, but I'm going to turn it over to Christine and Dave, who are going to talk about the specific personnel budget moving into next year.
So good evening. Tonight we are diving deeper into the personnel side of our budget for the 26-27 school year. As we navigate this structural deficit, we must bridge the gap while protecting our student programs and our existing workforce. This will work for me eventually? Thank you. So tonight's presentation will outline how we're going to use strategic attrition, efficiencies, and targeted reinvestment without compromising our existing programs. All right. We are currently looking at the total projected enrollment for next year, projected at 4,016 students, which is a slight net decrease of about 10 students compared to the current year. The primary shifts are happening at the elementary level, where we're projecting a decrease of 64 total students across grades K through 6. We've added another component to our kindergarten projections, including information from the Department of Health, utilizing live birth data. Live birth data shows a decrease in 19 live births from this year to next year. However, our trends over the last 5 years have been pretty similar. So we are projecting at the higher end at 287 to ensure that we are prepared. These are average class sizes that Tim went through, and despite the financial challenges, we're remaining committed to these established class size parameters. We may be leaning towards the upper end in some of those, but we want to maximize efficiency and while ensuring that we do not exceed them. Because K-6 enrollment is decreasing and we'll be leaning into our established class size parameters, we will align our staffing through strategic attrition, meaning we are capturing savings when staff members retire, transfer, or leave the district rather than layoffs. You'll notice that we're not increasing our core staffing at the junior high despite a bubble that's been kind of going through. And the reason for that is the complexity of the secondary scheduling and the room to absorb students. So if you have 195 students across 10 sections, you're averaging 19.5 per class. Now you've increased by 30 students, so you're at 225. You're now at 22.5 per class, which still allows us to be under that 25 student target. This efficiency allows us to move resources into high impact areas where there is a growing need in specials or encore areas and foreign language at the junior high. Class size comparisons. This table shows that with our efficiency efforts, we're still able to remain within the class size parameters. At K-6, you're seeing an average of 18 to 19 students in K-2, 21 to 22 in 3-6, so it's moving from 21 to 22, and these are all based on averages. The actual average K-6 is about 0.8. And sorry, I just lost where it was. Okay. We're also identifying the increases at 7-8 and 9-12 from 20 in core classes to 22, specifically pulling out core classes because electives can vary so much. So we thought it was important to really highlight what the averages are in those core sections, English, math, science, social studies, and foreign language. All right. So the efficiencies. Through this attrition that was mentioned earlier, retirement, resignation, transfer, we are identifying efficiency of 8.0 elementary general education teachers. And we're also identifying one secondary science teacher position through attrition. We are continuously evaluating other areas as well. Again, we do have to invest in those high impact areas. While core enrollment can be absorbed, we're seeing an increased demand in the specials, encores, and foreign language at the junior high. We're proposing a 0.4 technology and a 0.6 world language increase to meet those scheduling needs. We're also exploring opportunities to share staff between junior and senior high to provide maximum flexibility. And we have a bubble position that we are holding because of the unpredictability of the kindergarten sections. Bottom line, we are realigning our staffing levels to match our current enrollment needs and trends while preserving the integrity of our class size parameters and maintaining all existing student programs. And I'll turn it over to Christine for the rest of the budget presentation.
Good evening. There we go. So moving on to our financial details, we're going to begin with an update to our bus fleet replacement plan. Please note that this slide is just an update from previous presentations. We've revisited these figures with our vendor, resulting in a minor adjustment to the numbers shared earlier. So specifically, we intend to finance for this round of our vehicle replacement cycle. It's increased by about $7,000 to $1,566,837. In previous presentations, we've shared segments of our planned expenditures. This slide represents a comprehensive roll-up of projected expenditures across all of our budget lines. Our total proposed 26-27 budget stands at this time at $117,566,837. $360,097, which is a 6.91% increase over the current year. The primary drivers of this increase are in some of our non-discretionary lines. Fringe benefits account for about 29, which is the third line there, 29.7% of our overall expenditure budget. That is going up 10.72%, adding $3.37 million to our costs. This is largely driven, as Dr. Terranova had mentioned, by a 15.19% increase in our health insurance costs, which is about $3.1 million. Other benefits aren't increasing as much. That's why we have a net of 10.72%. There's actually our teacher retirement system rate is going down by a percentage, which was a nice, a welcome savings for us. Salaries account for about $70 million of our budget, or 63%. As David noted earlier, our 2.52% increase in instructional salary does reflect the savings realized through this strategic attrition. We are currently analyzing the non-instructional salary line. I know that looks like it's going up 8.37%. I think there's some anomalies in there that we are going to revisit on that, and we'll find some savings. But I do know that some of the drivers to that figure is overtime due to staffing shortages in some of our departments, specifically transportation. BOCES accounts for about services account for about 8.66%. That's the third budget line from the bottom. That's 8.66% of our total budget. That had the next highest increase of about 13.69%, or $1.22 million. The BOCES costs, that still remains a preliminary figure. We're waiting on numbers from Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES to come in later this month, so we'll be able to lock that down a little tighter and have a little better understanding of that. This line includes administrative services through BOCES, our data processing and technology purchases, along with special ed placements and occupational educational costs. Notably in that line, part of that increase is about $308,000 of that is for the newly developed Early College Access, COSER. It's run through BOCES. Running the costs through BOCES, as you know, provides aid to us. So what these are our students that are taking courses through FLCC and MCC. Some of those courses are taught at FLCC, but some of them are taught here by our own teachers. By transitioning this cost to a BOCES line, that enables us to get aid on those salaries that we're already spending money on. So this is a new item in our budget for next year. It's actually, we're going to experience the first expense this year. It wasn't budgeted this year, but next year we will have aid coming in for those expenses. So we're still working out the final details on it. But in short, you know, if we do spend the full $308,000, I don't know that that's exactly where we'll end up. That would generate roughly $190,000 in aid for the district. So again, strategically trying to maximize our aid for expenditures that we're either already incurring or need to incur. Tuition, that's another line that had a big jump. That's the rising costs of specialized placements. And then again, the other line down at the bottom that, you know, looks like a 50% increase, that's that interfund transfer. That's a $100,000 capital outlay project. That's just where it's classified. That $100,000 was previously in our BOCES line for a project that we had done through BOCES, and we got BOCES aid on that. When we look at our revenue streams, we see a total increase of, on the blue line, of $3.5 million, or 3.38% from the prior year. While we project 4.29, the first line there is an increase in our tax levy, generating $2.59 million in new local revenue. Our state sources grew by 2.61%, which is about halfway down the slide. When you weigh these available revenues, though, against our $117 million increase in expenditures from the previous slide, we're facing an initial budget revenue shortfall, as Dr. Terranova had mentioned, of $7.6 million. Just to put this, these numbers in perspective, this chart shows a visual comparison of our new revenue, the green bar there, of $3.5 million, against the cost increases, our health insurance in the yellow bar, and our projected budget deficit, the red bar. So as you can see, our total projected revenue increase from all sources is $3.5 million, and our health insurance increase is 3.1, which is 87% of our total new revenue being consumed by just one expenditure line. So this kind of visualizes that core challenge that Dr. Terranova had mentioned earlier, that where our revenue growth is not keeping pace with even our non-discretionary expense line item growth. This is creating a growing structural deficit. It's going to require us to move away from short-term fixes and look at long-term sustainability. So as you know, we've talked about this before, you really have three ways to fill a budget gap. You can raise revenue, lower expenses, or use fund balance or reserves. To raise revenue, we face a few challenges. Here we are constrained by our tax cap formula and state aid formulas, where a 1% foundation aid increase only yields us $271,000. So to fill a $7.6 million budget gap with state aid, they'd have to have a 28% increase in foundation aid. If we, we're also restricted by the tax cap. We simply can't tax our way out of a situation like that. So if we were to raise the tax levy by nearly 13, we would have to raise it by nearly 13% to be able to cover a budget gap such as this. The other option is to reduce expenditures, which that's very difficult to do, given that 76% of our budget is personnel-related costs and subject to contractual obligations and health insurance market volatility. The other option is to utilize fund balance and reserves. This year, we appropriated $3.6 million of last year's year-end fund balance to cover the 25-26 budget gap. At this point in the 25-26 year, based on current projections, we expect to have between $6.8 to $7 million available at the close of the school year to help balance the 26-27 budget. This is really due to our built-in contingencies. However, I must emphasize that this is very likely the last year that we're going to be able to adopt that strategy, at least to this extent. This is kind of taking a look at the health of our reserves. We reviewed this back in December, but it's critical context when discussing a deficit of this magnitude. Our total reserves, both capital and operating, at the end of 2025 school year, stands at $10.1 million. This table, you've seen this before, just provides a multi-year data behind that chart that you just saw. So rather than focusing on any single line, I'm going to highlight the overall trend in our operating revenues on the next slide. So these are our reserves excluding capital. So this really, when you're looking at that, this is our safety net, the restricted accounts that we maintain that shield our operations from sudden spikes in mandatory costs, such as pension costs, workers' compensation costs, increases, or unemployment. We refer to these as our operating reserves. They are reserves balances excluding our capital reserve. This right now stands at about $6.8 million, or 6% of our overall budget. So if you're doing the math in your head, I want to leave you with a very cautionary note. Our total operating safety net of $6.8 million is now actually less than our projected $7.6 million budget gap for next year. This underscores that our accumulated savings can no longer bridge the structural gap created by our rising non-discretionary costs. Our focus remains going forward on monitoring the state budget and identifying further efficiencies. We will provide another budget update on March 26th. So our final milestones for the budget this year include Thursday, April 16th, where the board adopts the 26-27 budget. May 5th is our budget hearing and meet the candidates night. May 19th is our budget vote and Board of Education election. At this time, we'll welcome any questions that you may have.
I have a question. I think it's a Dave question, not a Christine question, I think. So looking at the slides with the efficiencies and the reinvesting high impact areas, so looking at the 9 positions on the efficiencies slide, 8 elementary gen ed teachers, 1 secondary science teacher. The next slide shows a 0.4 and a 0.6. In like the math of this position, of those 2 positions, is that equivalent to like a 1.0 full-time in terms of like benefits, salary, or not really, because they're like the 0.6 and the 0.4 together make a full-time position? I know it's different disciplines and it can't be the same person, but does it, in terms of like salaries and benefits for those 2 individuals, does it really shake out to be like a 1.0 position?
It can be. It kind of depends on how we fill it and what that looks like.
Okay. And so then the positions for the reinvesting high impact areas, that's considered separate from the 9 efficiencies up above. Like those 2 positions, the 2 part-time positions and the full-time position from that slide doesn't cancel anything out in the slide above.
It depends how you look at it.
Okay.
So you could look at it as an efficiency of a total 9, but the adding in of the 0.4 and the 0.6, you can look at it as canceling out to 8.
Okay. And then my final question, I'm not necessarily advocating for this, just a curiosity of practice in the district currently. Is teacher overages a practice at all? So if there's like a full-time teacher, but their load is over their 1.0 appointment, does that the thing that we do here at all? I'm not saying that we should, but like let's say that there's an art teacher who takes on additional sections over what their contract is. Is that ever been done, and do we do that?
Yes, we do that at both the junior high and senior high pretty consistently, and you'll see some contractual additional pay associated with that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
One quickie. What was included in fringe benefits other than health care?
So the employee retirement system, which is your non-instructional salaries, based on your non-instructional salaries, that rate did go up a little bit this year. The teacher retirement system, that rate did go down. That would be our workers' comp insurance premium, which actually went down a little bit, and unemployment expenses. Boy, I had to have the list back in my laptop, but
that's good.
Yeah, it's non-instruction, not other employment costs. One bright side too is dental insurance didn't go up; that stayed flat. So those types of other fringe benefits.
What are the number of employees we have right now, roughly? Does anybody know off the top of their head? Total employees for the district?
Are we about 800?
Something like that.
I think we're about 530 in instructional staff and about 800 overall.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if that includes part-time. I'm not the personnel person, but
I can get it back.
We can get you that information.
For the I think for clarity, I think I understand it, but for everyone, for the overloads, for lack of a better expression, those are one opt-in, correct? Teacher overloads?
Yeah, teachers
Those
taking
are opt-in.
on other positions, as far as I would know, that opt-in, not sometime, not always.
Not always opt-in? Right, but so contractually though, does the teacher have the ability to turn that back? In other words, we need someone to take an overload, and you have 3 teachers. Does it just get assigned to a faculty member, or does the faculty member have the ability to say, actually, no, I don't want to do an overload this year, and then we move on to another?
Since I am still learning some of the aspects being kind of new, I would like to defer to our high school and junior high.
So contractually, we can assign up to what we call 6 sections at the high school or secondary level. So teachers don't always have the opportunity to be able to decline it because of student need. And they do get compensated on top of what their salary is for that overage. We make every effort that we can to not have overages, and we have made a lot of progress. I think Mike will attest to that in recent years in some departments. It's not perfect, but at the same time, we are cognizant of it, but there are some times where we just can't, we don't have wiggle room, and we have to have those overages.
Right, well, and to that point too, you're going to have more wiggle room if there's an overage in English versus an elective. If there's overages in electives, do we end up going overage, or do we just end up saying, hey, we're going to have to close off the class list because we want to maintain responsible class sizes?
We try not to turn students away.
Right.
Okay, and we have a variety of electives and programs now where very often I don't think we've used a cap for a program or a class in years, to be honest with you, because there is variety for students. Where we start to see some of the issues is particularly in science and special education. Those are the 2 departments where we have quite a bit of overage.
Okay, and then thank you very much for that piece. And then on the efficiency standpoint, would overloads be considered efficiencies versus if you took all those overloads and hired 1.0 FTE or 0.6 FTE? Is it an efficiency to do the overloads financially for the district with the faculty rather than?
Actually, yes.
hiring? Okay.
Yeah, we haven't necessarily explored expanding though.
Right.
One of the challenges is that
Thank you. That's answered.
with the overages, it's mainly because if we can't find a .2 science teacher or a .3 some other teacher, it's difficult to find somebody. And but Mike and I have talked. It's not great for most teachers to teach that many sections, so it's not something that we're actively looking at to try to save money in any way. It's really something that we try to minimize as much as we can. But one of the challenges we continue to work together on is trying to find part-time teachers who are willing to come in for an hour to 2 hours a day and teach, because that's where the chunks of time are.
Is it more financially beneficial with the overages because you don't have like the benefits piece on top of it? It's extra salary, but there's not extra money beyond extra salary being paid to those staff members?
Yeah, correct. If you're bringing on additional full staff for that, you're paying the health insurance, all the benefits, fringe benefits that come with it, and that will inevitably cost more, yes.
Okay. Would we be able to see what the overages are currently? I'm curious about this.
Of course.
Thank you.
We can get that.
And then one other follow-up question that we can't answer right here, but I'd be interested, Dr. Terranova, if it's possible in the future to survey those faculty and staff members who over the past 5 years have generously been a part of the overloads. And we got some great data earlier on as far as our faculty staff survey and basically quality of life in the district, and that was all improving from the previous one. Actually, Mr. Gee, did you give that one? The one about the survey of our faculty staff? Were you involved in that group for some reason? Maybe not. but it was all good stuff about how people are in a much better place from a faculty staff standpoint than they were the year prior or the year. So those things are all going in the right direction. I'd be interested in what's that subset look like of the folks who have been.
I think Mike has that information already, probably.
That's what I'm saying. May have it. I don't.
I think, again, he can correct, well, not during this meeting, but he can correct me later. I just think I can't speak for all. There are some teachers that are fine with it. There are many teachers who struggle with it.
Right.
And they struggle. So I can tell you the morale of if we increase the number of teachers teaching overages is not going to be helpful to the morale of the staff.
Oh, no, I agree with that. The genesis for my question is a follow-up for those folks who are doing the overloads. Is there something else beyond the financial piece as far as their quality of life, just to make sure we're keeping eyes on them and making sure that they are feeling fully supported?
I think one of the challenges is just the time. The time is huge. It's more time, and it's very difficult to alleviate the stress of having to teach that many sections when, if you didn't, you'd have that time back. So, but there's certainly ways we can look at it.
Thank you, everybody who just answered all that.
I have one final question about this, then I'll turn my mic off. Is there any consideration with teachers who may not have earned tenure yet in taking an overage? So do we have non-tenured teachers taking any overages? Yes? Okay. Thank you.
I just want to not gloss over a point earlier in the presentation, personnel-wise, the average class sizes. I know it's only a little bit higher, but I lived the years of 25, and I don't want to go back to that. 18 in a kindergarten is awesome. 20 is not. So, I just want us to all be mindful of I realize the efficiencies and, we're tightening our belt, but that is tightening the belt. It's you don't want it to inch too high. So just my.
Yeah, I think we're very committed to making sure that happens.
Anything else? I do want to say a quick thank you to Christine. Since you've joined the district, the number of times I've seen us maximize aid in different ways has been quite incredible, and you did it again tonight, and those are the types of things we need. We need to find these efficiencies. We need to maximize aid as we're working with our community partners group to look at other revenue sources. But in the meantime, these small little things you're doing are making a great impact, so thank you for continuing to do that.
You're welcome. Anytime I can get something for 30 cents on the dollar, I'll do it.
All right. Then we are back to, we need a motion now to authorize the bond proposition and the legal notice for the May 19th, 2026 annual vote and election.
So moved.
A second?
Elizabeth?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, item D. We are approving the following trip, girls volleyball to Half Moon, New York, from October 9th to October 10th to compete in the Shenandoah Volleyball Tournament. And that is and then approve the Victor Wren Exchange Program for the 2026 school year. Can I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
A second?
Adam?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I saw no abstentions or opposition. Motion carried. All right. We then need a motion to approve the revised policy manual. The motion is to approve the manual and resolution for the adoption of the Victor Central School District Policy Manual.
Brian?
Second?
Elizabeth?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? Motion carried. And before we move on, I do want to say a thank you to both Maureen and Kate for all of their work on our policy manual over the last couple of years and our ability to adopt and move forward with that. Item 8, meeting reports. And Monroe County School Board Association committee updates.
I had planned on attending information exchange, but something came up at my school, so I wasn't able to. But I plan on watching, there's one on health insurance, and then there's another one on, I believe it's strategic planning next week, which I thought would be neat to sit in on and see.
The district operations on strategic planning, yeah.
Yes, district operations, not information sharing, my bad.
Just quick updates from the legislative committee meeting. Some of these are from February, but they were post our last meeting. February 16th, leadership from Monroe County School Boards did meet with RG&E CEO, Trish Nielsen. They said it was a great meeting, and RG&E is very supportive of our efforts, is also sending letters to the governor's office on our behalf to provide additional details on the grid issue. And so we do appreciate RG&E working with us closely on that. Also, instead of the Albany Day, where there were 20 people who used to go this year on February 26, about 5 members of our Monroe County School Board's Legislative Committee did go to Albany. They were able to meet with Assemblymember Benedetto and as well as Senator Shelley Mayer's office. And continue to advocate for more foundation aid, UPK, the electric grid issues, charter school funding, all of our advocacy points that we've been discussing all year. So we appreciate the efforts of Monroe County School Board continuing to do that. Item 8B, standing committee updates. Any from this past month? I didn't think so. All right, then item 9, upcoming events. On the 18th, next Wednesday, we have our board visit to facilities and transportation at 8:30 in the morning. It's always fun to tour those areas and learn more about what is happening there. We have our budget workshop on March 26th back here in this room. And then our next regular board meeting is back on a Thursday, April 16th. And on April 22nd, we have a special board meeting for Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES administrative budget and election of board members.
Is that the one where we have to all, like, physically gather for a very brief meeting?
We just need a quorum, and you do that vote. Yeah, we can do it any time of day, or whatever you guys works for you.
Perhaps when we're together on the 16th, we can figure out who can be there and at what time, so we make sure we have that quorum.
Sounds good.
Perfect. If there is nothing else.
Under the advocacy, I think we want to say thank you to the community for writing letters of advocacy to our Congress and senators. We did get a comment from one of the offices saying that Victor parents and staff members did send letters, so that was very encouraging. So we appreciate that support and continue doing that.
Absolutely. Oh, and as a reminder, we do have our meeting with Assemblymember Bailey on Friday now at noon.
Noon, yeah, she moved it to noon.
So for those who can attend, we look forward to seeing you.
It's in person, I believe.
Yes, it is in person. All right, if nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Thank you very much, and we will see you all at the budget workshop in March.